welcome to In Conversation With. Today I'm joined by a lady, and her name is Lillian Courtney. Lillian, you're very
How are you, Maura?
You're very welcome to In Conversation With. So, we are in conversation with Lillian Courtney now. Lillian,
Hi, Maura.
I'm going to start right at the beginning. Where were you born?
Right, I was born. We'll go back to the actual place, Marceline's nursing home in Wellington Road. I was brought up in St. Joseph's Park in Mayfield.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about your childhood.
It's strange you should say that, because someone asked a question the other day about whether what was my childhood like. And do you know what I actually said, Maura? I said it was the happiest time of my life. Because, you know, when I came home from school, my mom would be playing the piano and my grandmother would be sitting down having tea in her china cup, and we'd be singing and dancing, and it was so lovely. And I was drenched with love for my father, and my mom was all into music and Shakespeare, and my dad was all into Irish singing and reading and, you know, your character and all this. And then I just realized I forgot all about it, which was a huge main thing, is that I suffered dramatically with going into hospital, and I had a serious operation when I was 7. So I was going in and out of hospital, only kind of coming home. I spent months and months in hospital, and not only that, every single night and every Wednesday I had to go to the hospital, and every night then my parents had to do terrible invasive procedures because it was my stomach area. And I remember standing at 7 years of age on the window at home, on the windowsill at home, saying, you know, how could I run away? And it was just so traumatizing. And in the hospital then, it wasn't a safe place for a child in those days. It wasn't. And I was very lucky. There was one nurse, Mary Hurley, she was always kind of watching out for me. But a few incidents happened, which until I grew up, I realized that it wasn't right, do you know what I mean? And it was a terrible, terrible time. And then I had a major operation at 7, and a big long story which changed my whole life, because a lot of people wouldn't be religious, but it actually did happen, that I was going through a 12-hour operation where the Dr. McKillop, went to London to study on what they were going to do with the operation. And I remember I had about 14 operations, and I fell in love with the man that was bringing me down. I know he must be about 40. I thought he was about 40. But in the middle of this operation anyway, I woke up. Oh, imagine that, at 7 years of age, to see all these people. And I remember they brought a man in, and he had a paisley pajamas on, and it was probably for a blood transfusion or something. And all these things came to mind when I was thinking about today, and I was thinking about what people had asked me about my childhood. But I actually remember going up to the ceiling, and I remember at the ceiling looking over at, you know, the old-fashioned, they still have them, those shades, the rounded shades. Mm-hmm. I remember looking down, and I remember the priest holding my hand, looking down, and I remember my mum was after getting him to come down, because he had the part of the true relic, the cross, and nobody was to know, but my mom was very religious and she was well in, you know. So I remember then just going awake, like there was no transportation, but I was actually on a bridge, the most beautiful bridge, and I was always afraid to leave my mother, but I had no fear at all. And I was looking up over the bridge, and there was the most beautiful field with daffodils and daisies, and over at the side was the most beautiful thin path and a hedge, but there was nobody there. And all of a sudden I heard someone saying, like I heard somebody calling me, and it was a child. And at that time I'd been in for 7 years, going in and out, and he had as well. He had the opposite what I had. I couldn't go and he couldn't stop going to the bathroom. And His name was Jared Kingsley, and I'm going to find him because I actually heard him saying, when is Lillian coming out to play? Because I used to play with him, and I really believe to this day that child brought me back as I could. And then all of a sudden, such a serious operation, and people were saying, oh my God, how did she come back? And it's a lot, that's another part of my life that could go along. But in that sense, it's just how you remember how love can actually win over trauma and whatever.
So how long did this last? When did you recover? How old were you when you recovered and sort of got back to a normal childhood?
I'd say I was about 8, but it happened then through my life when I was 13, 17, and 13, 17, and about 25. I got major bowel blockages to the fact that once I was being brought out in a black bag out of home. But now I watch everything that I eat and I'm fine. You can't kill a bad thing, but I have to watch everything I eat. Sure. But I was very shy. I was a very timid child, very shy.
Yeah. Okay, so who assisted you? Who helped you during your childhood? Who enabled you to grow?
Well, I suppose outside my parents, my mom, always said, I was always standing on the table and singing and everything like that. And she was amazing because she was the person that actually, put me into theatre and all that. But sister and my father was brilliant as well. Do you know what I mean? He was always saying, be independent, because he had no sons. He wanted us to be independent. But I suppose the main people outside home would have been Sister Kate. She was in the convent. And I remember I must have been about genuinely 8. I was 7.5. I was just after coming back after the operation. And I remember we had our singing class and she was walking down, in the classroom. She was walking down and I was singing and she kind of stopped and went back then again. And she took me under her wing. And what she did was that she gave me genuinely all the main parts in the plays, the Christmas plays. And I remember she actually brought me down at 7.5 years of age down to the boys' school. And I was so shy because we had no boys anywhere in our house or anything. And I was so shy of boys at the time that she brought me down with another girl and she said, stand there now and teach them their communion songs. That was 7 years of age at the top of a class. And she wanted, but if you put me on a stage, Maura, I came alive. It was my true self. And the minute I put my feet on the ground of reality, I sank into the shyest person ever. I really did. But then at 12 years of age, she had found out that I was playing the piano at home. She brought me down to play the organ in the church. And I will never forget it. I remember she said she had forgotten the music to Soul of My Saviour. But when she came back, I was playing it. I remember she asked me, where did that come from? I said, my head. And she really pushed me there. It was unbelievable to go out on stage and then to Mosney Callig to go over the choir. And for 2 weeks he was going away and I was in the choir and he asked me, would I take it over? So I was 17 when I took over a choir. And it was a big choir at the time. And I was so happy because when I was small, the wallpaper, I always wanted to be a conductor and the flowers on the wallpaper, I'd be playing music and I'd be doing, but it was the happiest time of my life. And I suppose then playing the organ, there was a guy called Mr. Linehan and he was a psychologist and a yoga teacher and everything. And he said, I remember he called me down and he said, you know something, he said, because this was up in the front of the church, he said, you have the looks, the personality, he said, the talent, but he said, you have no confidence. He said, and you can't get anywhere in life without confidence. So he said, you have to come and do yoga. And it took you 7 years to get me to do Toastmasters, Maura. But I was saying every week, yeah, I'll go because I was too shy to go. And eventually he won. And he then had a library at home, and he gave me books on psychology, and the best book he ever gave me was Norman Vincent Peale, The Power of Positive Thinking. And he said, take that and read it. And then he said to me, because I was glued onto my mother, like we were everywhere together, he said, you can't be a crustacean. He said, stuck on a rock in the sea. You need to pull yourself off and be free. I took him literally, and I thought I needed to leave home.
So where did that take you? What happened? When you left school, you had this musical training, you had some acting at school, did you as well? Yes?
Well, my mother, she realised, because as well with Mr. Lillian, that I was so shy, and she just turned around and she said, you have to do something with your talent. Yeah. And then she went away and she found an advert, the Penny Theatre, and she said to me, go for an audition. Mm-hmm. And I was saying, oh my God. So I went for the audition, and I'll never forget it. It was Marion White, now she's unbelievable, and John Roach, he's dead now, Lord Mercy, so, but Marion is still really active in theatre around Cork, and we did Shawley's and everything there a few last year. But I went up in my first interview, and the audition was a big group of people, and I had to stand in the centre and become a teapot and give everyone a cup of tea. It was the worst thing I had to do in my life. I was so shy. So I was there, and we went all around Ireland for festivals, and there were like 15 guys and 15 girls, and we had the same music and the same dances, and we'd opened the new Savoy, and we were in the Opera House, and it was the best time. Oh, it was absolutely amazing. It really was. So then, how I got my first job, I got out of acting, because you learn to be a different character. And I remember my sister was was living in London, and she asked me to come over, and I went over for 2 weeks. 2 weeks, and it turned into like a year. Mm-hmm. But what happened, she was working in the Samuel and Montague Bank, and I only went over for a week, and she said, please stay, because her marriage wasn't doing very well. And I suppose she had 2 children, and she was kind of lonely over there. And she said to me, please stay. And I was supposed to go home the following day, and I was going down Oxford Street, and I was supposed to be meeting her for lunch, and I saw this agency called the Acme Agency. I always remember the name, because it wasn't Acne. And the next thing, I had no intentions of staying whatsoever. And, I was saying, oh, for God's sake, I'm all grown up. I'm in London on my own. I was like 19, and I was saying, oh my God, I'm walking down Oxford Street on my own. So I went into the agency, and they asked me what I was doing, and sure, I told them I was running an office here in Ireland, and I was doing this and that. So they handed me a card and said, go here at 12:30. And I said, that's when I'm supposed to meet Eileen. Like, and she had 2 names. Eileen, in Ireland, when you're born, you're called something, and then your parents change your name. So she was christened Helena Josephine. Yeah, in Ireland, if you go back on people, like I was christened Elizabeth Bernadette, and on the way down, my mother said no. My grandmother said, no, there's too many Elizabeths. We'll call her Lillian. So it's terrible for your passport, because it caused so much trouble when I was in France, because if you're there and your name is Lillian, but you're really Bernadette.
I'm going to hold you there. So you presumably were then christened by the nuns in the hospital?
No. No, you were given the name in the church after.
All right. No, but you were given the name by the hospital then?
No, by my parents, my mother.
But the names that were on your birth certificate?
From my mother.
Right, but so I'm confused. Elizabeth was the name that you were given at birth, and then your parents decided to change it.
My parents decided to change it, but it happened in a lot of people. Loads of my friends have different names. everybody, yeah, my sister was Mary Teresa Angela,
Yeah.
and now she's Maureen. And my other sister was Helena Josephina, and my mother changed her name to Eileen.
That's
Yeah,
weird.
crazy.
That's weird. I don't understand that. That's not an Irish. I mean, that's not. It may be an Irish thing, but I'd never heard of it before. Anyway,
Yeah,
let's move on. Let's move on.
Yeah. So I went over to the bank. I had no business clothes, nothing. And I said, I'm after getting a job. And she said, where? And I just looked, the stock exchange in London. And there they were, because they were all sitting down. They were saying, not a hope in hell. We're all here. We're trying to get in there for the last 40 years. And so the next thing I said, I have no clothes. What'll I do? So she gave me the skirt of her uniform for the Samuel Montague Bank.
Yeah.
And I went over, so I hadn't a notion of staying, not a notion of staying. So I walked in to, it was Grace Church Street, and I'll never forget it. It was like, it was like America to me. And I walked in, and when I walked into this place, like it was all beautiful, rubber plants and huge reception, and it was absolutely fabulous. And I said, I have an appointment with Mr. Dick Wells, please. And the only way, I went in and I was waiting. If I was getting that job for real, I would have been literally dying. So the next thing anyway, I looked at it and it said, contract cleaner. Contract, not contract cleaner, contract dealer.
Dealer? Okay.
Dealer, I said cleaner. Contract dealer, because there's contract cleaners. Contract dealer. So the next thing anyway, I went in, sat down. My father said, whenever you meet somebody, don't give them a weak hand. Squeeze their hand so that they feel the pulse in their heart. So when I went in, I just did. I was like, I could feel that the man was in agony. So I went in and I sat down and we were talking away, and I'd never, which I should have as a lady, have tissues in my bag. Do you know what I mean? You would and you wouldn't sometimes. You know the way you forget sometimes. And I had tissues in my bag, so he got into a terrible coughing fit. And I was sitting down, so automatically, if he was my boss, I probably wouldn't automatically, I didn't even think. I ran out the door, got a glass of water, and I said, sorry, excuse me, can I get a glass of water? Because I was on my way back to Ireland. Got him a glass of water, and then I opened my bag, and I had tissues. Me! So I gave him the tissues anyway, and I just said, stay silent, because I have a thing in my throat, sometimes it closes. And it's a long story. It's from biology class. Mercury hit my throat. That's a long story. But anyway, sometimes my vocal cords close and I know what to do. You just stay silent, because if somebody's coughing and you're saying, do you want to drink? You can't. Anyway, I stayed silent a while. So he said, what experience have you? So I was saying, well, I was running an office in Ireland. Not a hope. I wasn't running any office in Ireland. I was actually literally after doing a sight and sound secretarial course, typing, and I had about 80 words a minute, but I'd never worked anywhere. So he walked out the door and he came back in and he said, can you start tomorrow morning, please? I was looking at him, I was saying, what? Can you start contract buying and selling gold and iron ore? And he brought me into this office, and I was looking at the office, and it was a table with about 12 telephones from A, B, C, D, E, F, G, like an amalgamated metal, and you have to go to the stock exchange, do the deals, come back and confirm all the deals. I was saying, is he all right in the flipping head? So I went over to my sister and I said, got the job, but I'm going back tomorrow. And in the end, I took it. And they were the nicest people I've ever met, and it was such a lovely experience, and nobody would believe it. Sometimes I wonder, why did I leave? I had so much money. First of all, you'd get paid, and inside in the wage pack were vouchers. Vouchers for the best restaurants. I never heard that in my life. You probably did, because you lived in England. But like vouchers. I didn't know what to do. It was free travel, free eating, free restaurants. I said, what am I going to spend the money on? But I bought my mom a fur coat.
So was this a case of fake it until you make it?
It definitely was. Because, you know, oh my God, they had electric typewriters.
Yes.
And we had manual Remingtons.
Uh-huh.
You know, like the Rem. I had to ring my sister. There I was. How do I turn it on? I'm in an awful state. So then I just said, I better be honest. And I just said, look, I'm really sorry. I said, you give me, like, because if you show me something once, I'm very good. I'll take it in. But if I, like, normally I'd be not too shy, but too proud. I'd be very proud before to say, I can't use this. And I was ringing my sister how to use this and that and whatever. So I just went up and I said, listen, I said, I'm terribly sorry. We're used to manual in Ireland. So I was grand. Like, Jane, I wrote fabulous poetry while I was there. Do you know what I mean? And everything. It was so lovely. But I lived in what was called, my God, Ilford. That's where I lived, in Ilford. And I'm going mad. I had an apartment in London first, but my sister was living in Ilford. And one night I was going to her house and it was very, very late coming back. And there was nobody on the tube. And I just felt it was so dangerous. And I wanted to be nearer her. So then it's a pity that I didn't stay in London.
Yeah.
I'd have had a better time.
Yeah, I can understand that the tube can be a bit daunting on your own later.
Yeah,
yes.
It's too dangerous.
Yeah, indeed. So where did this lead you? You said you only had it, what, for a year?
Yeah.
The job? And why did you leave?
From riches to rags, as they say. From rags, riches to rags, definitely. Well, I came back here now. I did, because my father got a heart attack and he wasn't well, and I came back and I worked for a lovely girl called Colette Harrington. This was CSA, sorry, CSA, Angela in CSA. This lady, she had told me when I started my course in life to do a course in sight and sound, and she had an agency over kind of in the Grand Parade, and we were kind of Girl Fridays where you'd go to a company and kind of work for 3 weeks, or you could, like, we went into Apple now, and there was like about 15 of us in Apple building the whole lot of Apple up, and it was just amazing. And I remember there were no kind of like there was no restaurant or anything, so they used to send over sandwiches from Jury's Hotel and everything. And then I went up with you for Toastmasters, and it was a huge city. Yeah. I couldn't believe it. But she sent me to MeasureX, right? She sent me to MeasureX, this place where I was typing projects and stuff like that. I remember my first day, I never got fired, because in France, I'll tell you about that after. Like, that was when I came back from France. Hold on a second. That was when I came back from France for her. Sorry. But I was working in different places for her. But in MeasureX, was project management was the other thing. Sorry. With Colette Harrington. Remember, she sent me out to get uniforms, and I loved the British Airways uniform, Navy, and the whole lot. And I came back from town with a British Airways uniforms for all the staff. I thought it was beautiful, and I still have them. Like white shorts, navy pinstripe skirts, and the red and navy scarf. Yeah. But anyway, what happened is that from riches to rags, my friend, we were there, and we were talking about it. Oh my God, wouldn't it be great to go to France? So we saved up, and I sang in a band that night. I had my band, the Classics or whatever, and we saved about 2,000 each, and that was a long time ago. Like, so then we went over we decided to get the boat to Roscoff, and we met a guy from Blackwater Transport, and he said, I'm going to Marseille. Would you like to come instead of like paying here and paying there? So we got into the truck, as they say, the camion, and we went all around the whole of south of France and all down through France with him, because he was from Cork, and we had such a great time, do you know? But nobody would believe us if I actually told them. We were down in Marseille and he had nowhere to park, so he parked in the dock and we were hijacked. We were hijacked. Nobody would believe it. There was a crowd came along and they opened the back and they took the seals and they robbed 30,000 euros worth of beef. And of course, Egypt here was inside in the truck with my friend. And then we had to go to court and everything to stand as witnesses. I was saying, what am I doing here? Like, I'm a nerd now to something. But we went to Switzerland, and instead of staying in youth hostels, which was stupid, we were staying in chalets that were costing a fortune. And my father always said, you're not to take anything off anyone, which was the biggest mistake of my life. He was saying, if you go for a meal, you pay for yourself. It was the most stupid thing ever. Because people were saying, would you like to go for a meal? And I was saying, I'd love it, but I'm paying for myself. So we went down to the south of France, and it was April, and we looked through all the papers, and we found an apartment. So if you actually think of this, it was so strange. I don't think I ever told anyone ever this story, but we went down to the south of France, and I said, right, it's better to have a roof over our head if we're going to stay here. So I paid for the rent from April to September to this guy that actually just met us and said, look, here's the key, beautiful apartment in Avenue Castellane on the promenade, near the Promenade des Anglais in the south of France. Absolutely beautiful. I'll never forget it, right? And we were grand and happy. We were walking away. I was literally working in Hotel Mercure. It was a really posh hotel as a chambermaid. And I remember going along singing and everything, and the person that was over us, my God, she was the most horrible person ever, right? And one day she came in, I'll never, ever, debout sur le baignoire, stand on the bath and wash the ceiling, she was saying to me. Stand on the bath and wash the ceiling. She was so horrible. But I used to play the piano and sing in a bar at night as well. But I turned around anyway after about 2 months, and I said to her, I took my apron off and I actually handed to her, and I said, now I crown you femme de ménage. No, I crowned you like housekeeper of the day. So, and I left, and but I was very independent, but I met a guy, and he was really nice, but he was so possessive that I never told anyone that either. It's a long story. But I noticed that he was like, we were in a restaurant one night, and I turned around and I heard someone speak English. And when I turned around, I thought I got a kick in my leg. I was saying, did that actually happen? And then he was getting very possessive over me, going to work and singing and everything. And I'd work in a place where I got fired my first night. I was playing the piano and I was playing all Irish songs. And your man said, what are you doing? This is France. I said, please give me a chance, give me another chance. And the guy next to me in the next apartment used to charter yachts. And he said to me, go in and learn some French songs. So House of the Rising Sun was #1 at the time. La porte du pénitencier, bientôt vous serez fermée. I remember learning it. And I had about 8 French songs, and I went back to your man, and like I ended up playing then in bars, and it was so lovely. And we went to Monte Carlo and went to Monte Carlo Casino, and living the life of I wanted to be a James Bond girl when I grew up. Do you hear me? When I grew up, and that's
okay. So we've got sort of halfway from the riches to the rags, because you're spending money like it's water. But where did this end up?
It ended up, I suppose, with the guy that I was going out with. Literally, one night. Yeah, one night he was living in Lille, so we went up to his parents' house. And at that time, I was working, trying to learn French. And my French wasn't very good, but at that stage, it was getting good. And I was working copy typing in an office. That's what I was doing. And like before that, as I said, I was working as a chambermaid, washing toilets and doing everything. So I went up to his place, and his parents had a lovely house, and they went away, and he went out. I'll never forget it. He went out and he said, I'm going to buy a bottle of champagne for us. And while he was gone, I remember I had my hair in pigtails, denim t-shirt or whatever, shorts. I said, I'm going to get all dressed up. I put on the most beautiful white dress. I was all tanned, and I thought I was the most beautiful person on earth. But he was gone so long, I laid the table, and then I had another glass in my hand. So I put the glass down, and when he came back, he went psychopathic, thought that I was actually had someone in the house. Uh-huh. 2 stitches behind my ear.
Ouch.
Oh, literally nearly killed me. I was nearly left for dead. Left for dead. And, they talk, but they talk about people, that, like, going back to people when you love them. Love is actually blind, and people can take over your mind. But anyway, I came back home straight away after that. I just literally spoke to his sister and said, I'm out of here. And he tried to contact me for years and everything, but I was gone. So that was me out of France. That was me coming home penniless. Penniless.
Okay, so where do we go from here? So you're back in Ireland. Did you get a job? Did you get married?
Back in Ireland.
Did you meet
Angela from CSA found out that I was home.
Yes.
So literally, I couldn't believe it. I wasn't home a week. How she found out, I don't know. She was just an unbelievable woman.
Well, come on, you know that Ireland, as they say, is just a parish. Everybody knows everything.
It's so true. There was a knock at the door one morning, and my mother said, there's a lady here at the door for you. And her name, I found out in the end her name wasn't Angela at all. And she was the most beautiful. She had beautiful blonde hair, always beautiful clothes. And she stood at the door and she said, Lillian, I heard you're home. She said, there's a job going. Can you start in the morning? And I remember it was across from Jury's Hotel. And it was an office that did like boilers or something. I don't know what it was anyway. I can't remember. But I went in there anyway. And I remember I kind of got itchy feet again. And I said, I want to be an air hostess. So the next thing anyway, I rang and like literally another thing, if you had all the confidence that you had when you were growing up, like I rang and I spoke, like I don't know how I did this. I rang first of all and I knew I wouldn't get on to the manager. I knew I wouldn't, because when I rang the first time she said, oh look, she said, can you send in your CV and post it in to us, because there was no such thing as email then. And I said, what's the manager's name, please? And she said, oh, it's such a person. So I hung up the phone, waited for about 3 days, rang, and I said, hi. I said, this is such a person's niece. I said, I'm surprising him. Don't tell him I'm his niece. So that, and the next thing when she put me through, I said, please don't hang up. I'm not your niece. And the next thing I said, I want a job as an air hostess. And I swear to God, now this is unbelievable. So he said, oh my God almighty, he said, you're after going to so much trouble. He said, come in and you can have an interview. So he said, but you can't be an air hostess now. First, you have to be a ground hostess first. And then he said, you know what, can you swim and all this? Sure, I was saying, of course I can. Sure, I couldn't swim an inch. I said, there's plenty of time to learn. And I will never forget it. I got the letter. I was at this place and a letter came in home, and it was to go for the interview for to be an air hostess. And Angela contacted me and she said, don't even talk to me. I have a brilliant job. It's for 6 months, but if you're keep up with the standards, it's a pensionable job. It's a multinational. They're the top multinational, 5th in the world. And she said, take that. So it was the very same day I had the interview as to be an air hostess. So my mother said, you've been away in London, you've been away in France. She said, surely be to God, it would be so lovely to spend some time here. And then she said, you're only going to be a glorified waitress up in the air. That's what she said.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I regretted it for years, but I took FMC and I was there for 12 years and I had the best time ever. I loved it. I did. I loved it. It's down Little Island. Would you believe for years after I left, they took me out for twice a year, and I'm still meeting them. I'm meeting them now next Wednesday in the Montanati Hotel for dinner, for lunch. Isn't it so lovely? So that was me. That took me there.
Okay, I want to hear a little bit more about your music, because you've sort of glossed over it. It's music here, music there, but music is a very big part of your life, isn't it?
It's huge. It's everything, really. Do you know? I suppose I started in a band very young. It started with Sister Kate, because she had me in all the shows, and then it went on to the Penny Youth Theatre, where I was in the Opera House and all that. And then I joined bands, my own band, and then I joined the last 5 years of the Michael O'Callaghan Show Band. There was a 15-piece brass band. It was huge, and we travelled all over the country, and Garda dances, and like Croke Park for All Ireland finals. And then I had my own band, and you know, we actually did the rally for the Bernie Murphy elections, and it was just the most amazing experience, because like there were thousands of people turned out, and you know, I'm still singing to this day. I'm in Silver Springs next week, and I'm in small pubs, and I do funerals, weddings, anything you want me to play at, do you know? And I do miss playing the organ in the church, and I miss all that, and I do miss the band, because at the present moment I'm solo and working on my own. And then I was thinking, if my children were reared, which we didn't get to that part yet, that I would love to go back acting. And I met Marion Wyatt a few months ago, about 3 years ago, and she offered me a part in Shawley's in The Everyman, and that gave the bug is back again for theatre, and I love theatre. I love it. I really do.
Okay, as you say, you sort of glossed over the fact that you have children. Now, presumably, therefore, there has to be a husband somewhere.
Yeah, I haven't got to that yet. So, how I met him was I came home from France. After that happened, right? No, I had no intentions of ever going back to that guy, but I had left a whole apartment, and I had left all my friends, so I was going back to them. But I remember I was really into health at the time, and I still was in connection with all the people in the bands, because I had been in a band before I left. Do you know? The band was called Fleetwood before I left to go to France and London, and I got it from, Heart to Heart. The dog was called Fleetwood. Heart to Heart was on television, and I got that.
Did you have problems with Fleetwood Mac by any chance?
Yeah, that as well. Yeah, Fleetwood as well. But the two of those names. So I decided to go jogging. So I went down to Glanmire, and there was a band playing, and I met my friend, and he said, I remember I had a jog suit on, and he said, can't you stay? And I said, not a hope in hell in these clothes. So the band was coming in, and who was in the band? Only my husband, Tony Courtney, which I didn't know he was going to be my husband at the time, but I knew the bass player. He was our insurance guy, Jack Wire. And I remember I said, oh, I'm home for a week. And I said, look, if you're looking for a singer, I'm home for a week or two. So the following night I was out, and my mother said, there's a guy after calling called Tony Courtney, and he said, you're playing tonight? So I got all dressed up in my diamonds and diamantes and beautiful black dress, and he brought me up to a tiny pub up in the barracks. It wasn't it wasn't this size. And I found out in the end that it was his friend's pub, and that he paid me out of his own money because there was no gig. He just made it up.
Yeah.
We were going for about 3 years. We went out with each other for about 3 years. He's the guitar player in the band. We set up a band together called Lillian and the Classics, and we had the band for years. And then what happened is that the drummer had to go to Dublin, and we got a new drummer in, and then we got a new bass player, and it just didn't work, and he was uncomfortable about it. And we had 3 children. I have two sons and a daughter, and we're still together.
After how many years?
I'd be afraid to actually say about 36 years at this stage. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy how long you could actually be together.
Yes, I make no comment about that because, yes, my relationship's never quite lasted that long.
But like, I think about it, when I think about it sometimes I say, oh my God, like, because marriage to people nowadays, oh my God, I don't like this doesn't work out. I think you have to work at things, and people are not, a lot of people don't work at things and other people do, so you can't say that a lot don't. But a lot of people don't accept. It's a different world. In my time, I feel like my father now saying, in my time, in my father's time. But in my time, I suppose I stayed at home and I gave up my job to mind them. But I set up a business then as well. He had a business, his father had a business, Blarney Castle, where the contract was there for 52 years, where anybody kissing the stone, he had the rights of the contract to the stone, photographic rights. So he was there for like 50 something years, and Tony would have grown up like on the castle, and they would have kind of, I suppose he was sent to Mount Mellery boarding school, and he was shy enough, I suppose, but he was in the band, so he was wild. But they were out in Blarney, and I decided to when the kids were small, I gave up FMC so that I could rear them. And then I brought them out to Blarney, and it was so funny because, you know, when you're dealing with the tourists and everything and the Americans, they were in the pram. And as they grew up, then they kind of learned, I wanted to use the cash register, and they learned how to deal with foreign exchange, and they learned how to be salespeople, you know, at a very young age. And we were there for years, and then they decided to change the whole system to a digital format. And as soon as we got the digital format up, we had no contract because it was just kind of honourable shake hand, and the father died and the son took over, and we were thrown out. And I had 13 staff. We were there for years. We were so used to making so much money that it was like a light switch from having so much money for, like, we were there for, I was there about 20 years then, like, you know, from the time I gave up FMC, and it was devastating to happen. We lost everything really out of it, you know. So we had to build up then again, because during the time that we had the money, like my house, if you saw my house here now, there's 2 windows and a door, and it looks small. We built the whole house back again and up. So I invested the money into the house, which is good, but the savings weren't there, do you know, that type of way. And we had to pay, you know, we had to take care of our staff. And fair dues, 2 of the staff still stay with us because we do Blarney Woollen Mills every year, and the same staff are there. But it was terrible because it had a trickle effect down. It affected us with the children. It affected like all the family and all the people working for us, and they all had mortgages and everything. So it was terrible, you know. Okay,
so the contract's gone, and presumably then your business just collapsed, contracted. So then where did you go? What did you do next?
I had decided during the time that the children were, that was kind of in 2009. But before 2009, when I left FMC, I said to myself, right, because I'm a person that feel that I need to keep my mind occupied. So when the kids were in school, I went back to UCC, and I did development studies, world development studies, finance, and what the world is about, and women's rights, and all this stuff. I studied all that, and environmentalism and World Banks, and I graduated with that, but I didn't use it. But during that time, I decided I'd go and do PR and marketing. So for the Irish Public Relations Academy, we're doing a course in UCC, and that woman, Ellen Gunning, to this very day, she really had a huge effect on my life, because when I was looking at her, she was actually, I said, I want to do that. She was lecturing, and she had such an amazing personality. So I remember one of the projects was that we had to open a business or advertise ourselves. So I said, right, we're photographers or whatever. And I was still singing. So I would have been singing at night when the kids went to bed, like Thursday, Friday, Saturday and Sunday, or Friday to Monday. But the photography was gone, which was our main income as well. So I was passing down, where was it, Dillon's Cross by St. Luke's, and I saw this big, huge window of an old shop that was nearly knocked down. And I said, oh my God, that's how I'll advertise myself. We'll just put a big, huge poster up, weddings, portraits, or whatever. And this was my project I had to do, and I had to be successful to do this for my PR and all this, and we had to do journalism and event management and everything. So I found out who owned the shop. So I contacted them, and I put a poster up, and people started ringing, can we come into the shop and get portraits and, stuff like that. So eventually I rented out the shop, and it started going really, really, really well. And we were there for a few years, like out of nowhere. It really went well. And then I was sitting down one day, and I said, this is my husband's business. He loves photography, but this is not my vision, and it's not what I want. I want to become a business and personal life coach, because from the time that Mr. Linehan gave me the book, The Power of Positive Thinking, I had been in that direction the whole time in my life, and reading all these books and writing and everything. So I decided to look for the course to see where I could do it. I didn't know you could do it in UCC at the time, but I couldn't believe it. I said it to my husband, and he came in one day and said, I found this, he said, business and whatever. It was a course, but it was in Dublin. And so I decided, I gave him the keys, and he got someone else to run the business. And I went away for 3 years, up and down to Dublin, and then they'd come to Maryborough House, and maybe they'd do a weekend, and you'd go back up and everything. So I spent like 2 to 3 years graduating, doing that. It was very hard, because you would have 120 hours of this, and you had to do accredited to ICF, and you had to do the Marketing Institute in Ireland, you to do all those things. But Ellen Gunning, when I forgot all about her after 20 years. 20 years passed, and I forgot all about her, because this was like 1990 when I met her, in 1994 when I did the course with her. And now this was 2013. So I rang her, and I said, I'd love to meet you, because I'm going to Dublin and I have an idea. So I was after putting a whole program together, and we sat down, and I think I'd about literally €50 on me at the time. And I said, I'm going to give her a good impression. And I brought her to some hotel. Where was it? On Stephen's Green, a beautiful hotel. And we went in, and we had high tea and everything. And we were there for about 4 hours instead of an hour. And she hired me as a corporate coach. And she did everything she did so much, because she brought me to the Chamber of Commerce in Dublin, and I went around doing loads of work for her. And then COVID happened. I was working for myself, and I set up my office in Blackpool, and I have an office there at the moment. So I was just building up, just getting on fantastic, going to Google, as I said, getting new clients and everything. And all of a sudden, COVID happened. Offices closed, everything closed. And then I set up Tia3 with me, and it was a show. We did 560 something episodes, well, to keep everybody motivated. And I tried to start, which I'm in the process of doing, trying to go online now with my program. But a lot of the clients, they didn't want to come. They just didn't want to go on Zoom. So I'm building up now again and bringing people into the office. And the office, I just love it. I love the office, I really do. And that was another thing. One of the girls, Eleonora, I was giving a speech in the Bank of Ireland. They were very good to me at the Bank of Ireland as well. They allowed me use their space to give, the meetups as well. And they asked me to do a breakfast morning speech on business coaching and goals. So I did that, and one of the girls said, "Where's your office?" This one of the women attending. I said, "I haven't an office, but I actually have to find out about it." Imagine, Maura, this was 6 years ago. I can't believe it. And she said, "No, come over now, because I really think you'd love it." She brought me into this office. I'm not joking you. Like security, beautiful reception. And the office that she was showing me was huge, and you'd fit about 4 people into it. I said, "I'll take it." So I took that office. I went in, put all my graduations, all the things all over. And I was there for about a month, sitting down, looking out the window and saying, "I made it. I had my own office." And I was doing nothing. I wasn't contacting anybody. I was just looking out the window saying, "I know that person out from somewhere." And I was going home, and then there was a tiny office next door. And I was saying, "This will be my secretary's office." And then the guy that I was renting from, he approached me and he said, "I'm expanding." And he said, "I'm just wondering, would you mind?" He said, "Think about it now, and I'm not forcing you. Would you mind taking the small office and giving me the big office?" I said, "What? That's for my secretary." And he was laughing. So he said, "Think about it. It's less rent for you." And I went home and I said, "I'm not going to be bullied in now, because I was a yes person before." And I said, my new personality was, "Does this suit me?" And then when I boiled it all down, I said, there's enough room for one person to come in. There's enough room for me to work, and I can use the conference room, he said, which is huge, if I have a group. So I went away into that, and from the minute I went in there, Maura, like there was a wall, no window for me to look out. And I started working then. I took it serious then, So I do love it. And, it's just, now I'm getting back. I really missed it. I felt it took me 6 years to grow that business, even though I've been 30 years working in multinationals and in all different departments, to build where I am. And I feel that I'm entitled now, and some people say that they're entitled when they only start. But I'm literally, I went to Germany then. My son was doing design sprints, how to help people to solve problems, and he trains Google and Lego and all these places. So I did the course with him with a guy called Jake Knapp, who actually invented Gmail, and he worked with Google. So I went over for 4 days. Nobody knew I was his mother, because I said, "Don't tell anyone." In the end, how do you know Jonathan? I'm his mother. But now I'm doing another course at the moment. He wrote a book called The Workshopper, and I'm doing another course. It's very hard. And I'd say to him, wouldn't it be grand if I could skip it? And he's strict. "No, you do the course now the same as everyone else." So that's where I am at the moment. I'm back singing, loving it. And I'm back just only literally starting off in baby steps again, trying to recontact and reconnect. And my course is in the College of Commerce, 6 weeks course, a night course, and I'm only starting back at that again now.
Well, we seem to have covered an awful lot of ground. So I think after 54 minutes, we should maybe bring this to a close. Lillian?
Maura, thank you for interviewing me. Because you brought up things that I hadn't even thought about.
And
it's so lovely. I thank you so much for inviting me on today.
And you've told the whole world things that you've never told anyone else. Now, isn't that amazing?
crazy situation.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you more. You don't think about it. You think about your life. When I take clients, I say to them, look at your life like as if you're looking at a video and rewinding it. But you never do it for yourself. And I think your show is amazing. I think I was listening to one of your previous guests, Paul O'Mahony, and it was lovely because I know Paul, and the other person before I leave who has influenced me and has been a great influence in my life as you, Maura, of course, because like 7 years you took to asking me and telling me to come to Toastmasters. And at my meet up in the Bank of Ireland, you videoed it, and you brought to my attention the ums and ahs that I was using, which I would never have known only for you. And I would advise anybody to join Toastmasters because it really has brought out, confidence in me to do things that I'd never have done, or take chances that I'd never have done before. And you're the person, that has really influenced me as well.
I'm polishing my halo as we speak. Lillian, thank you very much for being a wonderful guest. And folks, if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please do so and hit the notification bell. And if you want to see another video that I've made, then just click on one of the links that are coming up on the screen right now. And I will see you again in the next conversation. Bye for now.
Thank you, Maura. Bye.